Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Behind the Plays. I am your host, Davion. I also go by Davion OW, obviously, as you can see by the beautiful nameplate and the beautiful new graphics that are sitting up on the screen. Little bit backlogged because I did say at the beginning of football season was going to happen, but then our graphics artist, we went through a lot of stuff, and you know that, I know that, we know that. Anyway, besides the point. It is new stuff, new logo, new everything. You can very much thank Maidesu. Everything to her will be in the link down below. She has a link tree that I'll link to get her to Twitter and all that stuff. So seriously, phenomenal artist, great at anything GFX. 99% of the things you'll ever see on my channels is my. Like, honestly, I will go to no one else but my. But today, we have a new topic. For the first time in a long time, it's been football, basketball, football. We're talking about women's gymnastics today. Damn, I bet you didn't see that coming. You didn't. I didn't see that coming. I bet you didn't see that coming. So I had to bring in an expert. I had to figure out who could I bring in to help me dive into the world of women's sports, and who better than a small nugget head coach, a great friend, coaching the future of our gymnastics, Miss Dreen Alice. How are you doing today?
Me? I'm all right. Just did all my errands, so now I am free and ready to talk NCAA women's gymnastics, my favorite thing to talk about.
I can't say it's my favorite thing to talk about, but honestly, in the last couple of weeks, Dreen has really gotten me excited to talk about women's gymnastics, and I didn't think that was ever possible.
Yeah.
So shout out to Dreen.
It's fun. It's a really good environment too, because
it's not too bad.
It's totally different between elite and college, because they are just so hype. You've seen it. They get into it.
Yeah, that's how college sports are in general. Like, you can see it in every sport, like football to pros. That one actually is a terrible example because they're more hype in the pros. NCAA basketball into NBA level. Like, NBA gets hype, but there's a 15 seed residing in the Elite Eight right now in NCAA men's basketball, and that has never happened before in any sense of ever. So, you can imagine the hype that is around that team right now. You could see their energy and how their coach is planning everything. They are playing towards the hype, and I don't know, they got the mental to take all of it right now. I don't even know what to think.
They're on the up and up. They're ready. St.
Peter's is balling, bro. So
yeah.
So that's always
they beat my alma mater. So
they beat the team I had winning the whole thing in the first freaking round. So I had Kentucky winning the whole thing.
So it's rough out here.
It happens. So NCAA is always so energetic because they don't have nearly as many fans to hype them up. So who else is going to hype them up but themselves? That's why they come in with a better demeanor and a better mindset and such a hype environment. And honestly, I've been hype watching gymnastics with Dreen. We'll sit there and watch a meet. In Suni, I trust. We do fantasy gymnastics. And my team is named always Suni in Philadelphia because that is my team captain. And she has been carrying me along with Leanne, and freaking Haley Bryan has been insane.
Haley Bryan's a monster. It's insane.
She got back from injury, and I've never looked back. Not once. I slapped her on my team every week.
Those first few weeks were kind of rough.
Yeah, it was tough out here for me. I was like, oh my, what am I going to do with this team? Half my roster was out, and then I dropped some people, picked up some people. What was it? The girl from Michigan, JC Vore?
JC Vore, yeah.
Oh, what a legend. I had no faith in her, and then she popped off one week, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just keep playing you here.
Well, yeah, a fellow Hoosier through and through. She's from JPAC.
Shout out to her, dude.
She was originally committed to Arkansas, and then I believe in the last year or two, she switched her commitment to Michigan. So she's a freshman now, and she has been putting in work. On bars and beams. So
all I need her for. She's been great.
Yeah, that's what I've been excited for, is to watch that one.
I believe Michigan got a 3 seed this year. They got the 3 seed?
Yes, I believe so. They were ranked number 1 up until about, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks ago. They were ranked first the entire season, and then Oklahoma and Florida started creeping up there. So
yeah, Florida had an insane couple of weeks. They're your SEC champions, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So between Trinity Thomas and Leanne, they have such a dominant team now, and it's insane.
Yes, their roster is made up of entirely current and former elite stars. Leanne Wong is still considering going to Worlds this year, and Riley McCusker, and so it's insane.
Wasn't Leanne a Olympic alternate or something like
that? Yes, she was an Olympic alternate with her teammate from Gage, Kara Akers. She goes to Utah actually.
And Utah's dominant too.
They are ranked. They were in the top 4 pretty much all season. Yep. But she and Kara, they were Olympic alternates, and then they had to quarantine because they tested positive for COVID. So
hate to see it.
They weren't needed, but if they were needed, then I mean that
would
was,
have been unlucky.
you know,
but
it
it's a good
sucked,
thing that like just being told like compete or not compete, play or not play, being told that you're an Olympic alternate is huge because you are good enough to be in the Olympics if something goes wrong. like God forbid an injury happens. This happened. The NBA used to only send college players to the Olympics. It was just prior to like 1980s. This was before they sent Michael Jordan to the Olympics, and everyone was abused. But when they did this, they would only send college players because they were like, oh, the pros, we're better than them. And then the rest of the world started sending their pros, like their professional athletes, and so NBA was like, oh, so you guys are like. Or USA was like, oh, so you guys are serious. All right, cool. We'll send Michael. And we haven't looked back, right? So what they would do, though, is they would send one college player with them. So, like, with the Michael Jordan team, he was technically in the NBA, but he was, like, didn't play much yet. It was Christian Laettner. He was, like, the most hated college basketball player of all time. I swear.
Oh, my God.
He went to Duke. But Christian Laettner was on that team, and most recently, a couple years ago, I think 2012, it was what we call the Redeem team. This was the next best team. This was like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant. They sent Anthony Davis, who was just got drafted with the number 1 pick, hasn't played a game in the NBA, but was immediately slapped on the Olympic team, and it was for experience. So they do stuff like that. That's serious, though. You are still good enough to be sent there. Like, they were like, yo, you're good enough to be here. We're going to send you here. And they had extra people just in case. Like, you just never know what's going to happen.
And I mean, the way that the women's Olympic team was like situated, it used to be just, 7, and then it was 6, and then it was 5, and then it was 4 plus 2 specialists plus the alternates.
Right.
And like all of those freshmen, like the entire Olympic team, excluding Simone Biles and Michaela Skinner, they all went to NCAA. They were all freshmen this year.
Yeah, they all came in as freshmen.
Jade Carey, for example. Yeah, Jade Carey, for example. Those people are
fresh out of high school. That's how crazy that is.
Like, I mean, they have come in and they have dominated, and people have been talking about this freshman class for years, and a lot of them, like Jade Carey, Morgan Hurd,
Suni
Riley McCusker, they have been putting off, like they've been deferring for years because they were going to go to Tokyo, but then Riley had an injury, Morgan had an injury, so they Morgan didn't even get to make it to nationals. And so she found out she had a torn ACL, so she's been out this season.
Gosh,
but that is one that I am excited for next year. I've been following her since she was a junior athlete. And she is the 2017 World All-Around Champion when Reagan Smith was out with injury, who is also a junior at Oklahoma, by the way. That's how stacked the NCAA is.
Yeah, and so this is something I've learned about NCAA. So I'm going to let you guys know right now, Dreen is going to do a lot of talking. And the reason Dreen's going to do a lot of talking is Dreen is much more versed and experienced in this field because she has learned for her life what gymnastics is and how it goes about and how it works. I'm like months into learning gymnastics. So I will make a lot of input because I think I know enough to talk about the subject now. And that's one of the big reasons why I was excited to talk about it, because I'm like, I've learned a lot the last month. So let's put it to use. Let's talk about it on the podcast. Yeah. And it's something I've always wanted to do, is be more diverse with my podcast and not just talk about basketball, not just talk about men's sports. I think women's sports are very, very, very important. And I've learned that a lot. And I made a tweet about it like a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, where I was like, man, I didn't realize until March Madness started how poor they were doing the women's sports, like realistically speaking, because gymnastics was all over ESPN, which grateful they were. Like, seriously, I was super happy that they were like on actual like ESPN and not just like ESPN3 and ESPNU. Like they were on ESPN. And then the women's, they slapped everything on ESPN this year, the national NCAA basketball tournament. And the men's are like on True TV and all that stuff, but that's usual for them. But I was really happy for them, and they started doing the things they do for men for the women. And I was like, thank God, because we never had the women's bracket in the ESPN Tournament Challenge. Never had it just right there. They never had their own app. The men had their own app, but the women never had their own app. So why? Yeah. What the heck? They wouldn't have. And so I got all the
finally.
games. No, seriously, and they're finally getting what they deserve. But we're not anywhere close to bridging that gap. So that's a big reason I wanted to bring in someone like Dreen to talk to us about women's sports. not only in general, but especially gymnastics. So that's something she's really, really knowledgeable about.
Yes.
So I'm just really happy to bring on, and I wanted to be more diverse about it. And I seriously was like sitting there like, this is ridiculous. Why don't we get as much exposure? But it looks like the NCAA is trying to get better.
Yes.
It's a road. It's still a journey, but we're getting there. And that's you got to start somewhere, and that's important.
No, I agree. And a lot of huge strides have been made this year, especially in gymnastics, which is a sport that often gets put on the wayside.
Absolutely.
Unless it's the Olympics.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
Yeah. And they aired a meet. It was actually Florida versus Alabama at Florida on ABC, and it got so many views. I mean, it was insane. And
I would have watched it. I like gymnastics.
That was their.
That's the only time I watched it was on the
equality
Olympics.
Meet.
Yeah. The only time I watched it was Olympics. So it's like I never realized what's the journey for them, because like a lot of them are in like high school when they go to their first Olympics. Like they're coming out of high school, and I'm like, what's the next steps for them? Like, what do they do? And I would never know. And I think the same thing about like swimming and like volleyball and stuff like that. They have like all these types of meets and qualifiers and world championships everywhere. And I didn't know these were a thing. I didn't do my own research on it. They don't ever tell you any of this stuff. So it's like crazy how diverse the world is in sports that aren't just like your big like five, like your football, your soccer, your basketball, those like baseball. Those are like the big, I think hockey.
The big ones.
I would put hockey in the big five because that's really worldwide, but that's neither here nor there. Like those types of sports where you're like, I know those are pro leagues. I know they have other pro leagues.
Yeah.
I didn't know gymnastics had a really diverse professional world.
Yeah. I mean, there's not like a specific pro league for gymnastics. I mean, there's just really like the gymnastics, there's the elite route, and then there's NCAA. That's really all you get.
Yeah.
And most of the time, although it has been changing in the past few years, it's usually been like 16, 17-year-olds. They go to the Olympics, they go to Worlds, then they turn 18, and then they either keep going if they're from like countries like Russia, Romania, China, or if they're from like Canada, the United States, I mean, then they'll end up going to NCAA usually. And for a while, it really was just like occasionally Canada, USA, there would be girls from like the UK coming in. But now, and if you look at programs like Iowa State, they have girls from so many different countries. I mean,
we were talking about
Spain,
that.
they have the UK, they have Italy.
Stanford
has a Russian girl,
Stanford's
actually.
the one with the Russian girl.
Stanford has a Russian girl.
That's right. It was another red school.
Yes, it was Stanford. And speaking of Stanford, they have had a great season because last year so many of their girls opted out because of COVID and stuff.
They said, all right, now we're going to run it.
Yes, and they have had a stacked roster. I mean, Kyla Bryant, Taylor Lawson, Brenna Nault, like their incoming freshman class, like it was so good this year. They had Ana Paula Gutierrez. She and her twin sister would compete internationally for Mexico for a while, and unfortunately, like her sister retired like beginning of the season. But Ana Paula, she has been doing amazing. I believe. Like I think if Stanford doesn't move on out of I think they're in a play-in.
They are. They're playing San Jose in the Seattle region.
Yes, she could advance on vault, I'm pretty sure. Because she has a Yurchenko 1.5, which if you don't know what that is, and a lot of people don't, it is a round-off entry onto the board, and then you do a backflip up to the table. So it's like a round-off back handspring. Okay. And then you lift, and you twist all the way around once, and then an extra half, and so you'd be facing away from the table. And that starts at a 10.0 in NCAA, whereas if you just do a full, it's a 9.95. Okay. So you want to maximize that start value. And pretty much, if you're like in a D1 school, you're most likely going to have a 10.0 start value unless you're on vault. That is a harder one to like start at a 10.0.
Unless your name's Haley Bryant.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're Haley Bryant has one of like the best vaults in the NCAA.
She was the vault champion last year.
Yes, I mean her vault is like world class. I mean front handspring, pike, half off. Like, granted, at SEC she did have an off vault and she didn't.
She had an off meet. She had it off meat.
LSU had a very off meat in general. LSU and Georgia both did.
And they're still ranked
which is very
6th
unfortunate.
going into the tournament. So it's like, okay, it happens. We're still in it. Let's keep fighting.
Yes. Speaking of ranking, we can kind of like go over
that was next on my list.
The end of season rankings.
That was first on my list of things we needed to do.
Yes. So
we'll talk
Oklahoma,
about seeding, but we'll have top 10 here in the.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We'll start with the top 10 and then we'll go from seeding from there.
Oklahoma.
So Oklahoma. Oklahoma. I mean, they have been in the top. 5 for God knows how long. I mean, at least since 2015, probably earlier.
From what I've seen, they've been top 10, damn near top 5 every time they have a chance.
I mean, KJ Kindler, like, she has put in work. She used to work and coach at Iowa State, and they did pretty well there. And then she took over the Oklahoma program, and she just, like, I mean, did
flying colors.
God's work. Like, she recruits so many elites, so many, like, everybody calls them ninja level 10s. Like, they'll be under the radar, and then they come to NCAA, and they are just showing out. I mean, like, that freshman class, like, they have Jordan Bowers, they have Danielle Sievers, like, they have so many girls. There was one, Maria Linker, I believe her name is. She's a freshman from Florida, and I'm assuming she's been out injured all season. She was expected to make huge impacts on floor and vault, and she just hasn't been seen. So I'm assuming she's been out, and she'll probably be out until next season, which is a shame because I was excited to see her. I've been following her for a very long time. But I mean, you know, I'd rather them take time to heal injuries than rush them back.
Especially if you're young. Like, if you're a freshman, sophomore, and you have injuries, it's okay to take a year off and try to come back. In fact, when me and Dreen were talking about injuries, I didn't know how many blown Achilles injuries these women have. Like, they have such... But, like, after seeing them compete, I'm like, it makes sense. The velocity you go at when you're landing, when you're taking off, like...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of strain on your body. And they're women. It's like, it's not like, we're not talking about, like, big-bodied, 280-pound NBA
like big
player.
Bodybuilders, yes.
These are small, petite... Not in a bad way. They're very muscular. I bet you one of these, they could probably beat the crap out of me one day if they wanted to. Like, they're not weak. That's not what I'm saying here. They're smaller in size, and the amount of strain that they put on their body can only take so much before it just poof. And the Achilles tendon, I've learned a lot about the Achilles recently in basketball due to the fact Kevin Durant blew it out like a year ago, and then the year before that it was someone else, and it's crazy. It was a lot. So I learned a lot about Achilles injuries in the NBA, and it's such a small tendon, the Achilles, and if it's not that it's weak, like, it's that it's a lot. It takes a lot. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's used for walking. It's used for running. It's used, and it's in gymnastics. You're landing on your Achilles every single round off, every jump, every anything you do. You're putting strain on your Achilles. So that the amount of injuries I saw from it, thankfully it's not a lot, right? It's not as many as I'm saying I can make it seem, but it's crazy how many.
It's more than it needs to be for sure.
But
for example, I mean, Florida has 2 girls out, Ellie Lazari and Hallie Taylor at the Florida versus Georgia meet in Athens. Both tore their Achilles tendons.
Yeah, tears. Oh my gosh, ruptured Achilles too are rough.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yep. Lindsey Brown. This is her second time with her Achilles, unfortunately, and it's very sad because she came back with her COVID exemption year this year. So she's a 5th-year senior.
That's
tough. She tore hers, I want to say maybe her junior or sophomore year before. And then she came back her senior year, and she was just on track to be a national champion. And she was at nationals. She was on vault as her last event, and all she needed to do was hit that vault, and she fell. And it was just like, in that moment, we were all like, she was deciding how nationals would go, like whether or not she would come back, and she's like, okay, I'm coming back.
Yeah. Because
she fell, and she was that close to getting a national all-around title, and that's a huge thing for a program. Yeah, and that's a huge thing for a program that did not have, not like Florida, Oklahoma, Michigan. Big. Like, Denver has made it to the finals before. They made it back in 2018,
I've heard that they're a crazy cool program for gymnastics. I've learned a lot about Denver in the last couple of weeks.
They have been suffering from a lot of Achilles injuries as well.
Now, unfortunately, they got put in the bracket with Florida and Auburn, so
yeah, no, they're not. I mean, there's a possibility that it can happen. But
where there's a will, there's a way. But man, that's tough.
They've done it before. Yeah, they've done it before. I mean, 2019, like I said before, Florida had a meltdown on Beam.
Yeah.
Beam has been their Achilles heel in the past before in the postseason. Last year, for example, SECs, they had a meltdown on Beam and
they lost.
Meltdown in the finals at Nationals, and they landed in fourth. So it's
they finished fourth of 4 gymnasts in the finals or programs.
4 teams, yeah.
Yeah, and they were the 1 seed.
Yes,
I remember that.
They were ranked first pretty much all season, and then that's been kind of a trend for Florida recently. And as your resident Florida gymnastics fan, it sucks.
Yeah, I bet.
Because this program has so much talent. I mean, Trinity Thomas, Savannah Shanehair, Nia Reed, Leanne Wong, Riley McCusker, Sloane Blakely, Megan Skaggs, Alyssa Bauman, Leah Clapper. Like, that whole team is insane. And they don't even have all of their talent back yet. Because Ellie Lazari is like, she was lights out freshman year on Beam.
And she's coming back from an injury right now, right?
Yes. She's one of the ones that
she tore
messed up her Achilles. Yeah. Yes. And Morgan Hurd. Like I said, that is one of my favorite gymnasts next to like Simone and Trinity Thomas and Suni Lee. And Morgan, I love everything she does. I love like the activism that she does outside of the gym. I love her gymnastics. Her performance quality is just so good.
Right.
And so but she has just been so riddled with injuries that it's like NCAA will be hard for her because there are more meets in comparison to the elite season where there's like one maybe every month, every 2 months. So, but they aren't doing as hard of skills also as they were in elite. They can opt to.
They're just not.
But they usually
they're gonna have to bring the heat in obviously the regionals and the playoffs, the postseason, sure. But take it a little easy. They're SEC champions right now, so that's always a plus.
And they haven't done that since about 2016.
Right.
So when they finally got that SEC title, both regular season and postseason, I was just...
you were hyped.
Finally.
I remember. I was in call with you. That was exciting for you. You were
it was exciting. Because I've been a Florida fan for years. When Bridgette Sloane went there, she was a 2018... Oh my God, 2008 Olympian. And she is from Indiana. I met her before. Super cool. She was one of she is one of the best Gator gymnasts to ever come out of that program. So I've been following since before, like right around when she was a freshman, and that was freshman year of high school, sophomore year. So
for anyone who doesn't know, Dreen is a resident Indiana.
Hoosier.
She's a Hoosier.
I'm a Hoosier.
So and I believe she has a degree from Purdue, right? You went to Purdue. That's why we were making fun of Purdue losing to St. Peter's, correct?
It hurts.
Yeah. So. She was a Boilermaker. That's their mascot. I will never get over that. Like, that's such a weird mascot. Them and the Fighting Illini. That one's a weird one too to me.
Yeah, it is a weird one.
What is going on over here in the Midwest, bro? I moved here.
It makes no sense.
Like UNLV, like we sucked, but we were the Rebels, and I thought that was cool.
And then there's the Hoosiers too. Like, because
that one's not as bad strictly because of the history.
Like, but what is it? What is
also
your
true.
mascot?
What are you?
But yeah, I'm still waiting for Purdue and or IU or Notre Dame to put a gymnastics program in because all we have right now is Ball State. Speaking of Ball State, they do have a couple of individuals advancing to regionals,
and we'll get there when we get to the individual conferences after we do everything. We did talk about Oklahoma. I wanted to say one thing, and we were talking about the talent that Oklahoma has, and you talk about how under the radar they go. I have both Jordan Bowers and Carly Woodard on my fantasy team. And I wanted to state that both of them have been like consistent 9-8 and plus for the whole season on average in their respectful categories, obviously. The only thing that isn't Jordan Bowers does not do great on beam. I stopped playing her on beam for that purpose.
She's very inconsistent.
Yeah, I stopped putting her on beam. Like some days she hits, some days she's not, but I'd rather have everyone else on my beam. But Carly was really good on beam. She averaged a 9.85 through the whole season, which is really good.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
I agree.
And then floor, she was a 9.88 all the time. Like she was really good, like on floor.
Up until like about 2 seasons ago, maybe last season, she was only a beam specialist.
Yeah.
And then this is her 5th year. She came back with that COVID year, so it definitely has been kind to her.
She's been solid. I picked her up midway through the season when trades opened, and because I had like bottom like 5 of my roster were all hurt. I couldn't. Yeah. I had no. I had
you were plagued with injuries.
It was tough, and I was like, I even talked about dropping Haley, and then she competed, and I was like, I'll play you. Let's see what happens. And then she got like 3 10s. I was like, okay, Haley Bryant. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, no, the Oklahoma team is just riddled with talent. So they obviously deserve the number 1, but sneakily right behind them is Florida, who we just went into great detail about them. They were right .005 from tying them in national qualifying scores. That's what that means, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. It used to be RQS, and that was regional qualifying score, but now they just changed it in the past few years to NQS when they switched from 6 on the floor to 4 on the floor, which is what they call it now. They do call it the 4 on the floor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yes, I'm rooting for Florida, obviously. But from an unbiased opinion, it could go to anybody in that final. If it is Oklahoma, Florida, Michigan, and Utah, it could go to any one of those 4 because they have all hit over 198.
I'm going to even say this. And this is my Suni bias coming in, obviously, but Auburn's not to be scared, not to be easily talked about because they could very well beat out Michigan or LSU and move on.
I agree.
Move on to 100%. The Final Four, right? Because I think both, like, they're not far behind either one of them. They're 3 points behind Michigan? 4 points, maybe, like 3-5, something like that.
4 tenths.
Something like that,
give or take.
Yeah. They're right there, and same with LSU. They're like very close to LSU as well. They're one. They're ranked 1 lower than them. So I always look at the bracket. And I'm like, man, what would happen? I don't know if Auburn's gonna win it all because Oklahoma, Florida, Michigan, Utah has been in the finals every year. It is stacked up there in the top 10, obviously, and with good reason. It's the top 10. This isn't like basketball where if you're in the top 10, you have a chance to lose every game. No, if you're in the top 10, like, yes, you have a chance to lose, but it's most likely you're not losing. Like, you are there for a reason.
It is a lot different from those, like, literally any other sport because consistency is key. Yes. Especially in NCAA because it is 6 up, 5 count. You can afford 1 fall because you can scratch that, but in postseason,
nope.
You can't afford that.
You can't afford anything.
You need as many big scores as you can. And for example, like I said earlier, Florida's Achilles heel in the past was beam. We saw it in the SEC tournament. When we were watching it, everyone was hitting. Like, everyone was hitting. Out.
Everyone hit. Like, it wasn't like whoever finished last was last, but it didn't. They were like in the overall, like, because there's 8 teams total in the SEC that were in there because they did 4-4, right? Yes. I think that's what it was in 2 different sections. The last 4, like the top 4, they finished like 1, 3, or 1, 2, 4, and 5. Like, that's how good they were. Like, the only team that did better was the whoever won the first I don't remember the exact team, but whoever won the first. I remember seeing the stat.
Missouri.
Yeah, Mizzou. Mizzou was like 3 or something like that because they did really well. But like,
and they're having an awesome season too.
And that's what's crazy is that's how good they were, like, the top teams are because, like, even in the SEC they were like, yeah, you're 8th, but you finished last, but like, the number 2 team that was there definitely finished 2nd. The number 1 team definitely finished 1st. Like, it was crazy.
It was a clear cut. And unfortunately, Alabama did have that injury at the very end.
That was rough.
Luisa Blanco. Mm-hmm. It was rough to watch. I still don't know. They didn't specify. They just said it was an ankle injury, and she might be back for regionals.
That's good.
I don't want them to rush her.
No.
But if she's ready and she feels ready, then go for it.
I think the big thing about that is that if she's not ready for the first week, because it's split up, it's the next thing starts on like the 2nd or something like that, right?
Yes.
Because it's like regionals.
Because they have the play-in.
The play-in is Wednesday.
Yes.
Round 1 is the 31st, and then Saturday the 2nd is the
round 2
regional final, right?
Yes, that's the final.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so then
I think they could get to the final.
Yeah.
No, it's a matter of making it out of the final is what is the important part. Because if they don't make it out, they don't make it to nationals.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So my thing is that if she doesn't compete,
they need her back for that.
They just have to beat out 2 of the teams.
Let's see. They need to beat Michigan State and Oregon State, and
just getting out of their first round. Just getting out of their first round, because if she can compete a week from now, right? Like a week from now, and her injury's not terrible, then okay, they just have to compete without her, right? One game, one match, one little match, one meet. They could do that. They could beat out BYU and Washington without her for one meet. They're ranked 6th for a reason, or 5th for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Then it becomes a question mark because then they have to go up against like Utah, Oregon State, and Michigan State. Could they beat out Oregon State and Michigan State without her? Maybe. Potentially.
Most likely, but...
Why you can't take those risks, because we even said it.
Exactly.
If you're not at your best, these other teams are at their best.
Anything can happen. And in 2019, like I said, Florida didn't make it. Oregon State made it over them. And now they have Jade Carey. I mean, she has been the most consistent all season. Okay. She is Pac-12 gymnast and freshman of the year, and I don't think that's ever been done before.
Shout out to her.
She is the reigning Olympic floor champion, so she
Oregon
comes
State?
in with the credentials. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Beavers.
And, she didn't go to a big school like Florida, Oklahoma. UCLA is still considered
Oregon
a big school,
State
even though they haven't been having,
It's a small school.
Yes, in comparison, definitely.
Yes.
But they are all having a lights out season. I do think that if they don't advance, she will make it for all around. And if she does make it for all around, she is the one to beat next to Trinity Thomas.
Yeah.
Now, as long as Trinity is injury free, it's probably just hers to lose. But then Michigan, I mean, they have Gabby Wilson, Natalie Wojcik, Sierra Brooks, Naomi Morrison. They've got, and not to mention, Florida and Oklahoma and Utah. Like, there's just so much competition, more than usual this year. It is insane.
I think the thing that makes me sad. Let's finish the rankings, because we'll talk about the bracket in a minute.
Yeah.
But I look at the bracket, and like thing that makes me sad the most is that one of Florida, Auburn, or LSU isn't going to make it to the final, and that really makes me sad.
Yeah, it's rough.
Because I really like Haley and I really like Suni, but like I know Florida is really talented. Like there's like that literally the three schools that have been on my top of my list have been those three. They've been like the teams I followed a lot, because that's my Suni, my Haley, and Leanne. Those have been my three top
your
gymnasts
top scorers,
for the year. It's been ride or die with them. I've played them in everything ever since. So shout out to them. But like it's like crazy
team.
to think about that.
Yeah.
But we were talking Oklahoma, Florida, Michigan being ranked third.
It's rightful. I mean, they were ranked first all season,
Yeah.
and they haven't gotten bad. It's just that the other teams have finally stepped it up.
So Michigan is in the Big 10?
Big 10, yes.
And is Oklahoma in the Big 10 with them?
They are in the Big 12, but they are
12,
going to be moving to the SEC in a few years.
They are, with Texas.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
I know that because of college.
I'm hoping for a Texas gymnastics team, but
I know that because of college football. That's the only reason why I know that, which is weird.
So the SEC is already stacked.
Yeah,
so it's going to be even more
throw
stacked.
Oklahoma in there. Like when you realize the SEC now, it's going to be Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Kentucky. Those are 6 of the top 10 teams.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
It's insane.
That's
it's
ridiculous.
Crazy. It's absolutely nuts.
But Michigan's in the Big 10.
Big 10.
And did they win the Big 10 tournament?
Yes, actually. Okay. They got a 198.2, I believe, because it was Florida, Michigan, and Oklahoma. They all won their respectful conferences, all with a 198.2.
Okay, the top
and that's
3 teams.
huge. I mean, that's a massive score.
No, yeah, and this is out of possible. If you tend everything, it'd be 200, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they like think of that for a minute. They barely tenths of each, like tenth of points missed on each thing. That's how crazy that is. That's how elite
Michigan got the highest score of the season this year. It was a 198.575, and that's
crazy.
That's like the top. And Florida and Utah and Auburn, they also got that score this year. That is the 4th highest team score in history. I believe it's behind UCLA, Stanford, maybe Arizona State, Oklahoma's up there. I'd have to look into it, but that's like the 4th or 5th all-time NCAA record. Yeah. And the fact that 4 teams hit that this year?
That's crazy. That just shows how talented these teams are getting.
It's huge. It's huge.
I noticed that not Utah. Michigan has a lot of specialists at the bottom of their thing, like JC Vore. Yes. I think Raina. Oh God, I'm not going to say.
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, she only does vault. Yeah.
Yeah. I have both of them on my fantasy team. Fun fact. They are both specialists. They have, at least when I learned, they have a lot of specialists. They don't have as many crazy all around, even though they have a lot of serious good talent. They do have a lot of specialists, so hopefully they can pull it off still.
So I think they do have a lot of specialists, but I think the way that they go about it with Bev Plocky, which, by the way, an insane coach. She's been there for so long, and she has brought that recruiting game to 100.
And Michigan's the defending champs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
so
yes, they are. And that's the first ever in their program history. So I was like ecstatic when they won, because it's like, it is very rewarding to see your favorite teams win. But if they don't do good, you don't want to see the same teams win over and over and over again. It does get annoying. Looking at you, Oklahoma, unfortunately. They're stacked with talent, but I do like to see other teams win. And to see Michigan win with girls like Sierra Bricks and Natalie Wojcik and Abby Heiskell, that's one that is like under the radar that not a lot of people talk about as much. She comes in 10.0 start value on everything and just boom, 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 boom. Like, she's the one that sealed the deal for them at Nationals. So she's definitely one to look out for in the postseason.
Yeah. But Michigan will always be a threat. Defending champions are always a threat. There's always a reason. Unless you're Baylor, who loses in the round of 32, but UNC is in the Elite Eight, so I really can't say much about how deadly any of the teams are. So you never know. Basketball is one of those. NCAA basketball is just crazy.
I mean, that's just how it is, and it happens. It's like, if there's an upset, there's an upset, and it makes it more interesting, really.
Yep. To an extent. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, if my favorite team, like, I don't like to see Florida flop. But, I mean, then it does open the door
like,
for,
in this sense, Florida flops. Denver goes in, and they're like, oh, wow, that's a kind of a crazy team. Or LSU might get in. Or Mizzou might get in. I mean, oh my gosh, Michigan's in that bracket too? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's Michigan, LSU, Missouri, UCLA, Iowa. They have been having a pretty good season too.
Disgusting.
Like, yeah, that
regional's not going to be fair. LSU, Mizzou, UCLA, Michigan. No. That just sounds disgustingly unfair. It's gonna be
a bloodbath to get out of there. I think it'll call for a good final for sure.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be close as long as everybody hits. It'll be close for sure. I would love to see UCLA have a really good hit meet, because they've shown that they can do it.
Even if they don't advance, as long as they have a good meet.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, they could definitely advance. I mean, they've got Jordan Childs, Emma Malabuyo. They've got Anna Pataraju from Canada. Brooklyn Moores. Like,
they got Shea.
They've got Shea Campbell. Shea Campbell won.
Is a god. Is a legend.
She went to nationals last year. Actually.
Yeah.
She traveled with LSU around the floor. So. So they got the talent. Yeah, it's just a matter of
she's a 9.9 average on vault and floor this season, and that's crazy.
And like I mentioned before, she only does a Yurchenko full. That starts at a 9.95. The fact that her average is at like a 9.9 is insane.
Yeah, and she has been my most consistent hit this season, I've noticed.
Yes,
when she's playing,
she can do a 1.5. And she did get hurt doing it at nationals last year, so I think that's why they've kind of like pulled back on it. She's capable of doing it, but they've held back on it for sure, and I understand why. That's the way that like Cammie Weaver from Arkansas tore her ACL the very first meet doing a 1.5, and she landed straight-legged, feet out in front, and I mean it was just game over for her knees. Hurt. So
knees become a problem at that point. Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, Michigan's a threat. UCLA is obviously a threat to them in that first section. But we haven't talked about someone. I think Utah is next on this list at 4. They're ranked 4. Utah, if I study correctly and Google has not failed me, they've been to the national championship a crap ton of times in a row.
Yes, they haven't missed a national championship. Whether or not they made it to the final,
they haven't won one in a while, have they?
Yeah, they haven't. Which. I mean, that's just how, gymnastics is. It's just so competitive.
I mean,
year after year,
only one can win. It's how it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works.
I mean, but Utah is an interesting case because it has such a legacy in gymnastics. Yeah. I mean, Greg Marsden did so much for that program back, like, when I'm pretty sure, like, he was one of the first coaches for that. And he retired end of 2010s. So now, and then his wife, Megan took it for a couple of years, and now it's Tom Farden, and he has done such a phenomenal job with recruiting. I mean, he picked up Emily Morgan, who was originally committed to Cal, Sage Thompson, who was also committed to Cal. She's a level 10 star. She got a 10 on bars this year. I mean, she's huge. Like, they used to be very weak on beam, and he did some recruiting, and now they
are not weak on beam.
No, they're not weak on beam anymore. I mean, Utah was solely a vault and floor team for years, and now, I mean, they're like a good all-around team. And they have Miley O'Keefe, they have Abby Paulson, Adrian Randall. Like, their beam lineup is it can go head to head with Florida's beam lineup.
And that's why it's
I think
so cool that they're fourth. Like they needed something that was going to take them over the edge. It felt like they were always really good and they could stick around, but there was something always holding them back. Now you go out and recruit and you finally patch your holes. Boom, you're into your next level now. You're fourth. You're fourth in all of NCAA in the final top 10 rankings. What are you going to do with that now? And honestly, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. They got lucky and we're not put on the right side of this bracket.
Oh, they got
dodged
very,
a bullet
very lucky.
by like inches, it feels like. They like Bama, Michigan State, Oregon. They could get out of that. Oklahoma, Minnesota. They just have to beat out 2 of Bama or Minnesota. And I think they can do that. Free real estate.
I think they could if they just hit. I mean,
just gotta have a good
they
week.
have had some moments of weakness this year on beam, but
that happens
for the most part. I mean, yeah, it
They're
happens.
fourth still
it
for a
happens.
reason.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
region, for a reason.
So, and then speaking of Alabama, they're ranked fifth.
Yeah, they're right there on the list.
They're right there, 4 and 5 nationally.
Yep.
So, I mean, and especially if they get Luisa Blanco back, like, and she feels ready to do all around, or at least like 2 out of 4 events, especially beam.
Mm-hmm.
Beam is like beam and bars are like her big thing. Like, she is, I believe, one of the reigning national champions on maybe beam or bars or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I mean, her gymnastics is beautiful. Like, it's insane. And she has been huge for Alabama because they've always been really good. They're another legacy team. But their thing is that they did fall down in the past couple of years, but then again, recruiting. They got Makari Doggett, they got Lexi Graber, Luisa Blanco. They have Lily Hudson, who I did not know was going to make that big of an impact. I knew she was good, but like, she has been nailing, like, beam especially. She has been superb on beam. I have her on my team for fantasy gymnastics, and she's been a lifesaver for me on beam and occasionally floor. Sometimes bars, too. I mean, she's done the all-around before, but she rarely does vault anymore. Right. So,
yeah, so that makes them... It makes them a threat. Like, Alabama... I mean, any of these teams are obviously threats, and I keep saying this, yes. But, like, we've keep talking about it. Everyone has talent. Everyone in this top 10 has talent, and it's like... Have you felt I don't know much about gymnastics past. Have you felt in a situation like this where you're like, man, a lot of these teams could just make the finals?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for a while, it was literally like Oklahoma, Florida, UCLA, Alabama. Like, they were taking the top spots for years. Mm-hmm. I mean, Georgia, they won like 3 or 4 in a row back in like the late 2000s. Like, they had Courtney Coupets, who now coaches them. Mm-hmm. I mean, she was the blueprint, one of the blueprints, I should say, for Georgia's program. And unfortunately, they've fallen a lot in the past few years, which is unfortunate. They have the talent, but it's just injuries.
Everyone else got really good too.
Yeah, everybody else got better. That's the thing. Like, I cannot remember. I think the last time there was this much talent was after the 2016 Olympics, and there was Kyla Ross, mm-hmm. Maddie Koshin, Maggie Nichols. Like, I mean, huge talent. And even then, I definitely think this era that we are in right now, this 2022 season, is infinitely more insane with talent than it was with that 2016 group. And, like, Kyla Ross and Maggie Nichols, like, they were on the way to getting, like, the most 10s in NCAA history, and then obviously, like, COVID threw a wrench in that and ended their season early for their senior years. But, I mean, who's to say that, Leanne Wong doesn't, break out and be like 10, 10, 10, or Jade Carey. I mean, it just depends at that
there's
point.
So many rookies.
And they're only freshmen.
Freshmen that are like, could just come in and be dominant. It just boosts people up to higher status. Like, Leanne is still really good. Like, Suni is an Olympic champion. Like,
she's the Olympic all-around champion.
Like,
she's got a bronze medal on bars. Like,
she's ranked. She's literally the team's in 7th. They add some extra pieces. That team's deadly. Like, you never know. JC Vore even is like really good as a freshman in her specialist. She might go out this offseason and get better at vault floor and become an all-around beast. You never know.
Yes,
like, it's just,
absolutely. I mean, she also comes with a 10.0 start value vault. She has a Yurchenko 1.5.
Yeah, she just. I think she was hurt.
But she did have an Achilles tear, I believe, or maybe it was ACL.
Yeah, she was hurt, and they were making her mildly come back.
Yes, in her senior year. So it's good to see her do 2 events because
not only
coming back from an injury in gymnastics is hard.
Yeah, and
any sport.
Any sport, yeah, absolutely. But especially in this because of the continuous use of those same injuries. Like for basketball, I've noticed when you lose your Achilles or like when you hurt your Achilles, you lose a lot of explosiveness, right? You miss your first step, you lose a lot of the dunking ability, but you could still shoot the ball from 3 pretty effectively and not put a lot of strain on your yourself. Kevin Durant, prime example. He tore his his Achilles. His last season with the Golden State Warriors in 2019, he sat out all of 2020 for the injury. Last season, he came back, and he's been dominant as ever. Like, he's still a great player.
I mean, yeah.
So it's like, that doesn't always happen in college gymnastics because you still have to use those same explosive injuries to
exactly. Like,
you have to do the same thing.
The basics and the techniques are still there.
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that you learn, especially if you're elite or you're on the track to go to like a D1 school, specifically like a top 10 D1 school. You learn these things when you're like 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, like most 8 and 9-year-olds do not have that kind of coordination, and it's crazy. I mean,
and that's something that you have to learn from a young age to protect yourself and your body.
Yes, it's the muscle memory. That's a big thing that I teach with my kids when I coach them is muscle memory. So body shaping is very important. Yeah. Conditioning is, and in any sport,
absolutely
very important.
Oh, very, very much so. We just use, and this isn't me we don't lessen any sports here. I don't lessen sports based off of what you play and what muscles you use. But I've learned a lot about the body in gymnastics because when, like, seriously, I was shook. Like, even as Dreen, when she told me how many Achilles injuries there were, I was like, why? Like, at first, like, I sat there and was like, what do you mean by that? Like, that doesn't sound right. And I'm like looking at them perform, like, actually, like, go through their meets. I'm like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Like,
it's a lot. It's pounding on those ankles and
much.
Those knees and those hips.
Oh, man.
And I mean, speaking from experience, I did gymnastics for 10 years, and I got up to level 8, which in USAG there is, and NGA. Our gym does NGA now, which is like a separate program. But there's 10 levels, and level 10 is the highest you can go unless you want to go to elite. So level 8, like my back, my knees, my hips, you know, they were boom, 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 heavy pounding all the time. And so, you know, you have to find ways to protect your body.
And now she's like 24 and old. Her body's
yeah,
like 52.
24 going on 25. And I've got like, you know, arthritis and like bad knees, bad hips, whatever. But a lot of NCAA coaches are really good about managing injuries. I mean, for example, Florida, they had Alex McMurtry for 4 years. One of the best. I mean, she won. She was a national all-around champion in, I want to say, 2017, her senior season, or maybe it was her junior season, whatever year it was, I don't remember. But she had an ongoing back injury, and it was always nagging and stuff. But she was doing, I mean, Yurchenko doubles. She's gotten a gym slam before, so that means 10 on every event. And Trinity Thomas has done that. Kyla Ross has done that. Maggie Nichols, Bridgette Sloane, and I mean, the list goes on. And they managed her back injury so well that they would not let her compete like all around up until like end of season. And I think that's like perfect because they knew how to pace her, and that's how she won that all around title. So, I mean, it just, at the end of the day, it does end up going down to certain coaches and how they coach certain things. Like if you look at certain programs and you're like, oh, they have a lot of injuries, and like sometimes it happens, but there is also like injury prevention and injury like management, and some programs are better at that than others. I do think
that's just general. It's just depending on your your doctors. Like how good is your team doctors, and that's really important when it comes to managing injuries, because I think as any franchise, any school, any program, anything in any sport, they have team doctors. Everybody has team doctors. How good are your team doctors? And you're gonna have injuries. No matter what sport you play, you're gonna have an injury. I've noticed that a lot. Like, dude, even esports have injuries. Some guy sat out of Overwatch League because he hurt his wrist playing fucking Overwatch. Like, it happens, right? How are you managing those injuries, and how is your team helping you recover? And thankfully, the advance in medicine, especially with these Achilles injuries and ACL injuries, because not too long ago, these would be career-ending injuries. Like 10, 15 years ago, these are career-ending injuries, at least in basketball and football, I've noticed. Now the doctors are able to manage it. You're back in 6 to 12 months.
It's crazy.
It's amazing. It's insane.
And I mean, Kiana George from Cal, she tore hers. She's taking that 5th year, that COVID year, and she tore hers right before preseason started, like right around when they started going back to school and stuff. She did an exhibition routine recently with full tumbling.
Yeah.
I mean, and this has been, I want to say September. She tore it maybe August, September. And she's back. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
You know, the medicine and like the exercises and all this stuff, like these techniques.
Physical
it's insane to
therapy,
me.
the medicine, and the healing process. Doctors have gotten very advanced. Medicine has become very advanced, and we're honestly very grateful because it saves careers now. Seriously,
for sure.
In my humble opinion, and everything we've covered, I think we've done pretty good with talking about top 10 teams. Real quick recap: Oklahoma, Florida, Michigan, Utah, Alabama are your top 5, followed by LSU at 6, 7 Auburn. We didn't talk much about Minnesota, Cal, and Kentucky, so we can, but those are your 8, 9, and 10s.
Yes.
Minnesota, I actually know little to nothing about Minnesota. That's the one team I did not do too much studying on.
Well, thankfully, I do know a bit about Minnesota. Like, I'm not a super fan, but I am a super fan
You're
of
a super fan of
Lexi
gymnastics,
Ramler.
so it helps a lot.
I mean, yes. but like, specifically, Lexi Ramler's gymnastics. I mean, she has her own skill named after her. It's called the Ramler. And this is going to sound like, you know, Greek to everyone, but it's a Shapashnikova full, if I believe correctly, which means she is transitioning from the low bar to the high bar, and she's doing like a backward laid out flip over the low bar.
Rambler.
So I just tapped my head.
That name sounds really familiar. Rambler.
Yes.
Rambler. Why does it sound familiar? Why is Rambler familiar for me?
Rambler? I don't know.
That sounds really familiar. I don't know why.
But I mean, she has multiple 10s.
Yeah.
She has a 10 on beam. She has a 10, I believe, on vault. I mean, she has her Anna Loper, Maya Hooten. Those 3 right there are your boom, boom, boom. Especially on vault and floor. Maya Hooten has multiple 10s this season on floor. I have her on my fantasy team, I'm pretty sure. And she brings it every time. I mean, and her floor routine, it celebrates like Black culture too, which is huge. Especially in a sport where they're like, you know,
I've heard a lot
has
more
to be like
racism
ballet
than
and
lately.
da-da-da-da.
I've heard a lot more about racism lately than I thought I would in women's gymnastics. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's another beast for another day.
That's a conversation for a whole nother day.
Yeah, but I mean, Minnesota has what it takes. They could have taken the Big Ten title. I believe they did last year when Michigan slipped up, but they had a little bit of an oopsie on beam this year, so
Happens.
they weren't able to take it. But it's okay. It happens, you know.
It happens.
If they hit on that day, they could make it to nationals, and I would love to see that.
Once again, I will say this for the second time, that left side of the bracket is infinitely easier, in my humble opinion, than the right side of the bracket. From what I've learned.
It is unbelievable.
Because
stacked.
Minnesota could beat out Utah and Bama. They could do it.
It's possible.
Very,
it's definitely
very possible.
possible.
Like
Alabama and Utah have shown like fragility at points in this season.
Yeah.
So has Minnesota.
Yes,
so I mean,
exactly. So you don't know who's hitting that day.
Yeah.
It really comes down to who's hitting that day.
Exactly.
It's like college basketball. If you have a really good day, you could shoot like 10 for 15 from 3, which is 66.67%, which is unfreaking heard of. May I throw that out there? That is a very high percentage from shooting 3, and you just dominate the other team because you shot better than them that day. You hit your shots better. It just happens. If you're hitting your, if you're sticking your landings, everything looks great. Your routines are elite. Boom, golden.
You're done. You're good. Like you can do all you can, and if you put your 100% in and you hit everything, you stick every landing and whatever, and they don't reward you for that. At the end of the day, there's not much you can do. You can put an inquiry in if it has to do with your start value. Say they didn't give you credit for a certain connection or jump, or the judge happened to look down at their paper, which is rare, but it does happen. And they look down at their paper and they miss a connection, right? I mean, then the coach can go in and put an inquiry in. But when it comes down to like deductions for execution, they can't inquire about that. So you just kind of have to hope to God that they score you fairly, because let's be honest, there is some rigged judging in NCAA gymnastics, unfortunately. And it's gotten better to where more teams have been getting it, but it still does cause a problem, at least amongst fans.
All right, I'm gonna give you a prime example. I know it's not gymnastics related. Anyone who watches me, I bet you guys follow football, right? You guys understand football. Think of it like the SEC bias when it comes to rankings in college football. That's exactly the same thing as how it goes with bias in gymnastics. That's what I've learned. That's been my comparison, and I know you'll understand that. You won't understand that, but the viewers that watch me will. So that's your best possible example.
SEC does have SEC is a big thing in gymnastics. Like it always has been. I mean,
we just talked about half of the teams in the top 10 are SEC teams. Like,
or SEC teams. Like,
SEC's dominant in college sports outside of basketball. Basketball actually is not their domain for once. They're like, Kentucky's good, but like.
Well, we saw what happened to Kentucky, so.
Yeah. I mean, like, seasoned programs or like legendary programs. Kentucky's one of those. Like, the teams with the most wins in all of college sports are like Kentucky, Duke, who's not an SEC team, North Carolina, who's also, I don't think is not an SEC team, and then it's another blue school, Villanova. I think.
There you go.
Yeah, I was like, it's another. They're all blue. Blue runs basketball. I learned that much. And then red runs football. If you ever want to learn, because Bama, Ohio State, those type of teams are good in football.
I was gonna say blue and red is a mix for gymnastics. I mean, Oklahoma, Utah, Alabama, and then there's Florida and Michigan.
You never know.
And then you throw, LSU in there, and they're like purple and gold. Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, we didn't feel like being red or blue today, so we'll join as purple. We'll mix them both together.
For some pretty leotards, but
yeah, they do look pretty cool. I've noticed a lot of leotards are really dope looking. Like the Minnesota ones from their Big Ten championship were dope.
They were dope. I mean, they were black. They used black and then gold as a accent. So that's a whole different thing. I could go down a whole.
I'm a sucker for good uniforms. I'm a sucker for good uniforms. Like when I see cool uniforms, I'm like, that's dope. I love that. I respect that. But yeah, Minnesota's solid. Cal is solid as well. They're in the same boat, in my opinion, as Minnesota. They're like a good team that have multiple can do some things, and they're lucky to be in the side of the bracket that they are in. Because I wouldn't even consider them if they were in the same bracket as Michigan, LSU, Florida, and Auburn. So thankfully they ranked one step higher than Kentucky. But it comes down to what are you hitting that day, and that's the same for all of these teams. I think at the top 10, are you doing that well? Like the top 7 teams, I feel like are kind of like, I feel like they're all pretty good. If you're just Florida, Michigan, LSU, Auburn, you just got stuck in a very poor side of the bracket. But Utah, Bama are in the same boat. Like, are you going to hit that day? Are you going to do well? Like, you guys are good teams. What are you going to do when you get to that point where you need to actually make the big plays to move on and head to the national semifinals and the national championship potentially? So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always, in my mind has connected Minnesota and Cal together in the past few seasons because they are very comparable. In my opinion.
Very similar. I've noticed.
So, like, obviously completely different conferences, completely different gymnasts, but it's just their success stories are very similar to me, and their results are very similar to me. So
they're literally 0.11 apart from each other in the national.
Exactly. So, I mean, you get it. So the math is doing the math. The math is mathing.
It's literally there. Numbers don't lie.
And then right behind Cal is Kentucky, which this is one of the best seasons they have had. Yeah. I mean, this is one of the best seasons they've had in a while.
And a very competitive SEC, may I add, because we've said it once again.
Yes, I mean, that's huge. That's huge for them. And they are being led by Raina Worley, who is a beast for them. I mean, this is the best season she's ever had. I mean, we knew she was good coming in, but, like, this is insane. I mean, she's gotten 9.975 so many times this season, and she should have gotten, like, a 10 at least once, I think, on at least floor. But she's fun to watch, and she was ranked first in the all-around when NQS first dropped, and not like every team had enough scores for an NQS. So that's huge for Kentucky. I mean, they've been a program on the rise for a while, but like this year they're really hitting that stride, and they have that 197.25 NQS, which is huge for them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because unfortunately they are stuck with Florida and Auburn and Denver. But
and Ellis.
Like I said, they got LSU and Michigan.
And if they get out of that, they got to deal with UCLA, Michigan, LSU,
so it's like
Mizzou,
it's rough.
Like, dang.
Yeah, they got dealt a really bad hand, but I mean, anything can happen. Like any other sport, anything can happen, especially in gymnastics. Somebody could count a fall on beam, and then suddenly they're in. I mean, so it's just a wait and see game, but it is fun to like see what'll happen, really. But I don't know if I will see Kentucky go past the semifinals. I mean, at the end of the day, I would love to see them. I mean, I'm a fan of the SEC gymnastics. That's what I grew up on. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's a wait and see game, like I said before. So in the Norman Regional, we have Oklahoma, which is the host team, obviously, Minnesota, Cal, Arizona State, Boise State, Utah State, Arkansas, West Virginia, and Arizona. And I believe the play-in is West Virginia versus Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. Do you have that pulled up?
One more time.
West Virginia and Arizona for the play-in. I believe it's those two.
On the
for the Norman
West Virginia
regional.
Zona.
Okay.
And they would go in the same bracket as Oklahoma, Arizona State, and Arkansas.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I think that'll be interesting. Arkansas, when they hit, they could have a really good meet.
I've noticed they have some solid gymnasts on their roster.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kennedy Hambrick is their all-around.
They're not even ranked.
And Leah Smith.
No,
they're not. And I mean, they do have a young team.
They could pull out an upset. They could beat out Arizona State.
Definitely possible.
You know, they could beat out Arizona State. They could beat out West Virginia, Arizona, and move on to the next round. Going further than that, I'm not sure. Could they beat out Minnesota and Cal? Maybe. Maybe it's possible, but it's not as likely.
It just depends. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if they hit, then they could be on their way. But it is a matter of if they hit. That is. At the end of the day, if they hit, that is like the slogan for postseason.
That's the slogan for any postseason in NCAA because you only get one shot, right? Each round.
Exactly.
You have to play like it's your last round in the tournament. And if you don't play like that, then you lose.
You're going to be out. I mean, then it really will be your last game.
Exactly. So you got to play like it's your
So
like it's it.
But
so yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then there's the individuals in the Norman Regional. I mean, vault, they've got, and I mentioned this before stream, or before
before we started recording.
Podcast.
Before we started recording.
It's one of those days. I'm having tongue tied. But Gayla Griswold from Lindenwood, which is still a D2 program, but it's on its way to D1.
She just made she herself made a individual. That's pretty good.
Yes, and that's huge considering they only started that program. I want to say in like the mid 2010s.
That's huge for a fairly new
and small program. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, they have Alana Laster, I believe I'm pronouncing her name right, from Illinois State. And then they have Suki Pfister from Ball State. And I'm partial to Ball State, obviously, because that is the only team we have here. Yeah. She is also a fellow Hoosier, though. She is from, like, the Fort Wayne area.
Oh, cool.
So I'm biased. But she also does have a 10.0 start value vault. I believe all three of these girls do.
Well, that's why they're here.
She does the same vault as Haley Bryant, actually.
Nice.
She does the front handspring pike half off. So... Okay. If she can hit, I would love to see her make it to nationals. That would be awesome.
We'll see how far they come. And obviously, I hope we have everything goes well. And I don't expect obviously numbers because podcast ain't huge. But everything slaps how I want it to. We obviously will be back. We'll be talking about regionals, semifinals. Like, I'll be excited for that.
All that fun stuff.
So we'll be back. So I'm really excited to do that.
We'll come back with results.
I know. I mean, it's a crazy concept.
I'll either be very happy or I'll be very upset. Yep. We'll see how that goes.
And I'll be disappointed in Auburn for not making it for some reason. I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, somebody's going to have their heart broken.
I'm slowly becoming an Auburn fan. I've learned.
I mean, that's a good one to go behind, though, because
Auburn.
they have such a history.
I hate Auburn in every other sport. I swear, I don't know what it is about Auburn. They always make me mad. But this one, I'm cool with Auburn.
It's this team.
Suni.
Yeah,
it's literally because
they got Suni. They have Davion Goborn. They have Sophia Groth.
Sophia Groth is on my team too. I love her.
She has been putting in work. She is very understated. I think.
Dog, she averages a 9.919 on beam. That's ridiculous.
Crazy. And beam is hard. Like, I mean, all gymnastics is hard, but beam I feel is just so hard because
it's the hardest.
Literally a 4-inch piece of wood, whatever.
It's literally like a 4. They put you on a 4x4 essentially.
Yeah.
And tell you to balance on it off the ground and do some flips and stuff on it.
Acrobatic skills. Like, it's insane.
Think about that. Like, that's difficult. That's not easy. Like, not that gymnastics as any part is easy, but like,
yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's a hard thing, and being consistent at something that hard. That's like Curry being super accurate, shooting like 50% from like half court. That's unheard of. It's ridiculous, but it's a feat that you just don't see. It's like, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. Like, if you can hit beam consistently every time, take Christina Desiderio from LSU, for example. She is their leadoff. She hits pretty much every single time. Boom, boom, boom. Solid. Like, she is the definition of a good leadoff. I mean, they had Erin McAdeg a few years back.
Right.
She graduated, I want to say, before 2020. She was their leadoff. Like LSU has great leadoff girls on beam.
Right.
I mean, UCLA was in the same boat. Like they had, I don't remember which Glenn twin it was, but they got a leadoff 10 on beam, and that's like impossible. There's only been 2 leadoff 10s in NCAA history, and that was Reina Gugino this year, and it was one of the Glenn sisters a few years back. So it's like, it's very hard. It is very, very, very hard to get a 10 in a leadoff spot. You have to be like exquisite. I mean, usually 10s are reserved for that anchor spot or that second to last spot. So if you manage to get one first in the lineup, that means that you are doing everything right.
Right.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the Norman Regional, I think Oklahoma, it's theirs for the taking. If they don't,
oh, absolutely,
it's theirs to take. They're the 1 seed overall. They're the 1 seed here.
They have the home advantage.
They have home advantage. We're in Oklahoma. You should be fine. You got it. They're gonna definitely be biased because of home stadium advantage and all that fun stuff.
Yes, for sure.
But then again, it's like, who else is really competing against you? Like the next best team is Minnesota, and that's not saying too.
And that's a big gap. I mean, they're 8th.
Huge.
They are ranked 8th in the NCAA right now. So it's like, that's a big gap between 1st and 8th. I mean,
So we'll see how it goes.
At that point, it's a fight for 2nd,
Yeah,
really.
and Arkansas, I think, can surprise people. All right, so
as long as they hit.
While we're in the region, we will click quick prediction. We'll go all the way up to the semifinal. We're not going to go past that because we aren't going to really know much. All the way up to the semifinal. In the first bracket, Minnesota, Cal, Boise State, Utah State. Who are your 2 coming out?
Ooh,
and why?
I think you said
it's Minnesota, Cal, Boise State, Utah State. The 2 coming out of that little round.
I think it's gonna just be the obvious Minnesota, Cal, but Boise State and Utah State have had bright spots this season. I mean, Boise State has Emily Muhlenhaupt. She has been on that chase for that 10. She has multiple career highs of a 9.975. So I mean,
she's right there.
They could put in work. Who knows?
I'm gonna be overzealous because I'm the madman. We have a motto on the show where we call it spicy, not stupid. Where we make spicy predictions, not stupid predictions, even though they sound stupid. I'm going to go Minnesota for sure. I think Minnesota definitely, there's no way they don't finish first or second. Yeah. I don't think that if they don't finish first, they're finishing second. That's my honest opinion. But I think Boise State's going to squeak in there. I think Boise State might take it. I think they're going to upset Cal. I think it's going to be an upset.
It's definitely possible.
Upset City. That one. And then the next bracket, West Virginia and Arizona play in. I'm going to take West Virginia. Arizona's really close.
I'm going to say West Virginia also.
That's a hard one, though. It's a hard predict.
Close. That one could go either way.
Exactly. It's coin flip.
But I agree with West Virginia on that one.
And then I would put Oklahoma, Arizona State, Arkansas, West Virginia. And I'm also saying Oklahoma, and I'm going Arizona State's out. I think Arkansas advances out of those 2.
It's definitely between Arkansas and Arizona State for me.
Yeah.
Obviously Oklahoma.
Yeah. No, Oklahoma's the no-brainer. If you don't pick Oklahoma, you're crazy.
It would take a meteor falling out of the sky.
They would have to have, the beam. God forbid, knock on wood. They'd have to have every other player has to get hurt. That's the only way that they don't.
Which we don't want that to happen.
No, that's why I said knock on wood because I hate injuries. Yeah. I want people to be at their best and compete at their best, and it's more fun than that happens.
I agree. I 100% agree. But then for that second spot, I don't know because
hard. Arkansas's talented.
Arizona State has been having a record-breaking season, but so has Arkansas.
Right. Arkansas's talented.
So I mean, it just depends. Like Arizona State did peter out a little bit at Pac-12s, and Arkansas didn't have a bad meet, but it definitely wasn't their best.
Arkansas, unfortunately, has the fun time of competing in the SEC, so.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see them go up against, teams like Oklahoma, Arizona State, all that stuff. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to put my bet on Oklahoma and Arizona State.
Yeah, I'm going Oklahoma, Arkansas. Yeah. It's a close one, though. So then...
Yeah, we can go with that.
And then we'll just do each individual one because, again, we don't know until it happens, honestly.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Out of the entire little, region there, I think we will be sending probably... Oklahoma. I don't think Oklahoma loses that.
I know it's really tough because it could go any which way.
I'm gonna go Minnesota. Those are the obvious choices, but I feel like those are the right. I don't think anyone outside of those 2 should move on. Don't get me wrong, Cal is probably good, and like solid, and we've talked about how they're very comparable with Minnesota, but I think Minnesota just has the opportunity to hit more often than Cal will when it comes to a playoff setting.
I think that if Minnesota doesn't make it to that final round, then it'll be Oklahoma and Cal for sure. Because like we said, and like you just said, they are very comparable with Minnesota. Yeah. But Minnesota, I think, does have that consistency and star power between Maya Houghton, Lexi Ramler, and Anna Loper.
Yeah, they have just the ability to hit higher scores with their talent.
So I think it's going to be those two.
Being
from
streaky
that regional
doesn't mean your peak's lower. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna lock in Oklahoma and Minnesota. We're both on the same train on that one.
That one makes sense. But Arkansas and Boise State are my on the bubble watch list right now.
They're your bubble team. Yes, for sure. I totally agree. They could be a bubble team.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the Auburn Regional, which consists of Florida, Auburn, Kentucky, Denver, Georgia, Southern Utah, Ohio State, Iowa State, and Western Michigan. Iowa State and Western Michigan are your play-in round teams. Winner of that will go into the same second round as Florida, Denver, Ohio State, and Ohio State. So that's
tough.
It's tough. There's a bloodbath over here.
Scary.
That's all I'm gonna say.
It's not as bad as the Raleigh Regional, but it is still very scary.
Yeah, the one underneath that is really bad. The Raleigh, North Carolina.
We'll get there when we get there.
Crazy, but this one's probably next worst. That entire right side of the bracket is just ridiculous. Like it's to go to the national championship.
A gauntlet.
Yeah,
really.
It's a gauntlet. You got to be at your peak to get out of there. Like Kentucky could be an upset team. Denver low-key could be an upset team because again, this is the same thing. They are lower seeds than the teams we've named, some of the teams we've named already. But they also have the chance to hit super hard.
Yeah, if they get the points. They can be in.
They've been in these situations before. They know what to expect. Like, they got experience there. And Georgia's nothing to laugh at either, and they're not even ranked. Like, they're not a seed. Like,
if Georgia could hit, if they could hit the effect that Georgia Gymnastics has on NCAA Gymnastics, like, I want them to be good again. I do. I really do. And I'm not saying they're bad, but, like, they definitely have fallen.
They're not as good as they once were.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, they aren't winning national championships anymore, unfortunately. But, like, they do have the star power. And if they could just get past those injuries and, like, work on that beam consistently, like, especially beam, because that's been their Achilles heel this year is beam.
Exactly.
Beam. I mean, they counted, like, 5 falls at 1 meter, 4 or 5 falls against Florida. And I was like, this isn't Georgia, like they should be, hitting these. But if Georgia could just hit, they could possibly be in the mix. It's a possibility.
It's tough.
It's a little bit more of a reach, but it's still a possibility.
Yeah. So Auburn, Kentucky, Georgia, Southern Utah. I'm going Auburn, Kentucky. I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm sorry. I have to go there.
Yeah,
it's hard for me not to. Otherwise,
I agree.
I can't bet against Suni first and foremost, and then it's like I want to.
Well, they have the home advantage too.
That too. So. That's really huge. They are in Auburn, Alabama, which is really nice. But like Kentucky also is SEC. So is Georgia, but like.
They were ranked last in the SEC, unfortunately.
We're talking about right now, so
Kentucky. I think Kentucky will take it with Raina Worley, Callie Nixon, and Josie Angeny. Like I mean, they have some hard hitters.
If we have to go based off of how Kentucky sports has been these last few months, it's not looking good for y'all over in the gymnastics world right now.
It's looking a little rough over there for the Wildcats, but. They've been doing pretty well for gymnastics. So
hopefully
fingers crossed.
They looked pretty good in basketball too. Kentucky Kentucky lost to St. Peter's in men's, and I believe they lost to Princeton.
Yes, it
was on the
Princeton.
women's side as a 6 seed. I was pissed. I was heated. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Damn, they are just throwing everything away
in the first round and everything. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Both teams.
Kentucky Gymnastics. I'm gonna need you to.
You guys obviously, you have a chance to overtake basketball right now in the championship world. Just process that for a minute.
Just think about it. Think about
you guys. Just remember that when you guys start to go out there to perform, that should be your speech. We can get further than either of the basketball teams if we just win this. If we finish second in this meet,
which isn't necessarily a terrible thing for them to do. I think they could do it easily.
I think they could easily do that. Yeah, no problem. The next section of this Auburn friggin' meet is Florida, which is interesting that the home quote unquote home field advantage went to the 7th seed. I don't know how the regionals are decided, but
I was say they've been picked out for years in advance,
Oh, okay.
so
Nah, you can't really. Oh, and I bet you they give them like if they're from either of those regions, they're like, yeah, we'll slap you in that region. Makes sense.
I mean, I believe Florida has a regional within like the next 2 years, so they will have it at the O Dome.
Yeah, if they.
I want to go.
If they get a good
going,
bracket,
but
all the way down to Florida.
Yeah, I have actually. My former boss actually lives down there, so they go to Gator meets relatively often during the season, and I've gone down there with them before.
Cool.
So
That's cool.
yeah, I would love to see this senior class take a 5th year so that I can go down there and see like Trinity Thomas and stuff
That's
like
true.
that.
That'd be really cool.
That'd be huge.
So this one, the 2 seeds, Florida, Denver at the 15 seed, Ohio State sitting at the 3rd section there. Iowa State, Western Michigan have the play-in.
I'm saying Iowa State.
I am also saying Iowa State, but I'm also an Iowa State bias. For anyone who does not know, my cousin played for Iowa State. His name is Daryl Bowie. He played Iowa State as a 5th-year senior in basketball. They went to the NCAA tournament. They won the Big Ten championship. I believe that's what they're in. Big 12? Big 10? Big 12? Big 10?
12. Big 12, I think.
They won the Big
At
12
least
championship.
gymnastics is in Big 12.
Let's find out. Iowa
is in Big 10. I know that for sure. And then Iowa State in gymnastics is Big 12. So I'm
Iowa
not
State
sure.
Basketball,
I know some.
What am I looking for? Region?
I know some
Conference.
sports just depends, but
They're in Big 12.
Okay.
They won the Big
that makes
12 championship while they were there. I remember because that was really, really fun. I watched him run the gauntlet on that tournament, and it was really cool. Made the NCAA tournament, won their first round game, lost to Nevada in the second round. But Nevada was on one. They had 2 future NBA players on their team, which never happens for the University of Nevada. So
right, that's kind of huge.
That never happens. They're twins too, which is even cooler.
Dang!
Yeah,
that's
for
awesome.
the first time ever this season, they played against each other in the first time in their lives. They were.
I mean, I'm sure they're used to playing.
They were
with
always
each
playing
other
with each other
up.
growing up. They went to the same college. They actually, one got drafted, one did not get drafted. Got drafted. Cody and Caleb Martin, for anyone who doesn't know, went to the Charlotte Hornets. Then I believe Cody went to the was drafted in the second round. The other one didn't get drafted at all. Then Charlotte Hornets picked him up as an undrafted free agent, and they actually kept him because they had a crap ton of injuries. So they were like, "Oh, we'll play you," and then they ended up playing really well in the NBA. Like they weren't like over the top, but they were like good enough to stay on the roster, right? Then they got a bunch of people back, and LaMelo Ball got drafted. PJ Washington these are NBA players that are on the Hornets. They were like, okay, we need to get rid of one of them because they're bottom of the roster. They cut one of them, and now the other one plays for the Miami Heat, and they ended up meeting up with playing against each other for the first time. One on the Heat, one on the Hornets. And I thought that was pretty cool.
That's actually really cool. There's a similar situation actually like that in the NCAA. It's the Louisiana Sisters. They are freshmen. Mm-hmm. One goes to Iowa State actually, and the other one goes to, I want to say Boise State.
That's cool.
I think
that's a very interesting decision from both of them. One went to the Midwest, one was like, yeah, let's go to Idaho. Boise State's cool and all though. One of my friends went to Boise State, so Boise State's cool. Bluefield's dope. That's about all I can say about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so Iowa State definitely wins. I think Iowa State beats Western Michigan, right? That's what we said.
Yeah, for sure.
Florida, Denver, Ohio State, Iowa State. I feel like I have to go Florida, Denver. I don't think I can really give Ohio State or Iowa State the bump over Denver. It's really hard for me to make that decision. Again,
I think if there was one to unseat Denver, probably Ohio State. Mm-hmm. They did have a really good meet at
Big Tens.
But they were in the evening session, which hasn't happened in a while for them. So if there's one team that could take Denver's spot, it probably would be Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Their current coach, Meredith Polisiewicz, she has been doing a great job with them, especially this year. I would love to see them make it to the finals, but if they don't, then I think Denver and Florida.
For anyone who doesn't understand how morning sessions work in the conference championships, I learned this one during the conference championship week, like a week ago. They have the bottom 4, or like the 5 through 8 ranked teams, unless they have 6 people in the meet or something, like whatever.
Yeah, it depends on the conference.
Depends on the conference, right? The bottom half of the conference competes in the morning session, which means it's like the quote unquote least entertaining of the.
It's usually the lower scoring.
Right, it's usually the lower scoring sessions, which we said about the SEC. You guys heard that. Then the evening session is the top ranked teams, right? So like for the SEC, I'm gonna use them as an example because I watched that one. The bottom 4 teams, it was 5 through 8 were in the morning, and then teams 1 through 4 were in the morning or the evening session. teams 1 through 4 finished 1, 2, 4, and 8 or 5 and something like that.
Yes.
Like Mizzou was the only one that was like in the bottom that finished like top 3 or something like that. It was really
and
crazy.
They had a great
meet. Yeah, we talked about that for a while. We were like,
Huge
damn,
meet.
why were they so good? Like, what happened?
Those freshmen. It's that freshman class.
Yeah, it popped off. So that's what happens in the conference championships. Yes, the bottom teams do have a chance to win still, but it's least likely. It's like not as likely.
I believe it hasn't happened before, and if it has happened, I don't have recollection
and
of it.
Mizzou low-key was kind of close. They really did.
They
really
were
well.
very close. I mean, they
Florida
weren't close to Florida,
better.
but they were definitely Florida. I mean, Florida's just its
Florida's
own
just
league.
better.
But yeah, I think it'll be Florida and Denver, and then Auburn and Kentucky for the final. So watch me be completely wrong, and it's only like Florida, Auburn, and then it ends up being like Ohio State and freaking Iowa State or something that we don't expect.
Right. You never know. You never know what's going to pop up out of nowhere in the NCAA.
Yeah. I mean, shoot.
Okay, so we're in general consensus on Florida, Denver, Auburn, Kentucky. 2. You have to pick 2 of those. I mean, I have to say Florida, Auburn. I feel like that's this little section might be the easiest part. When it gets to the semifinals, where it's like, what is happening? Because
I mean, I do think Florida, Auburn, but Kentucky could easily go right in. If Auburn has an off day, Kentucky said, "Hey, this is my spot now," and go to nationals.
We've seen Auburn have off days.
I would love that. Oh yeah, they've had off days.
Like Suni fell off.
It's very rare, but. Yeah, I mean, if Suni has an off day, usually it kind of indicates the rest of the group, unfortunately.
She's their anchor in almost every event.
The only difference, I believe, is Flora is Davion Goborn.
Yeah, and Suni's like 5th in that event.
Yes, and she's usually the second to last spot. And then vault, I want to say it's either Drew Watson or Davion Goborn. Maybe sometimes Suni, because she does do those 10-0 start value vaults now. Because she has been having them for... elite season.
Yeah.
So she's been working towards doing a Chang, which is a vault that a lot of top vaulters do. It is a round off entry back handspring with a half twist. So it's not like a regular Yurchenko. They're adding that half twist onto the table. Mm-hmm. And then with a Chang, I believe you go 2 times around. I think it's 2 times. She has been training a Lopez, which is just 1.5 times, I believe. Mm-hmm. Maybe 1 time. I don't know the specifics. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'd have to look at it. For context, like I said, she's training the Chang. For context, Simone Biles' vault, the Biles vault, not the double pike.
Yeah.
She does have a Chang entry vault, and I believe it is 2.5 twists, if I'm not mistaken. 2.5 twists out of that round off half back handspring. So it's huge. If I'm not wrong, somebody's gonna crucify me somewhere. But look, like it's been a long time since elite gymnastics has been around.
Hey, I mean, you're the expert, not me, so. Okay. So we're in general consensus that it feels like Auburn, Florida are the teams that are going to go to the semifinal there.
And if not, then Kentucky, Florida.
Has a chance. We think Kentucky's not so far out of taking one of their spots.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the deadliest region in all the land. The Raleigh, North Carolina.
Scary.
We have UNC is a play-in team. And they are in their home area, along with, I believe, NC State is also here, too.
Yes, they are the home team.
Yeah.
Yes, they are hosting.
So that's really cool. LSU, Mizzou, Iowa, North Carolina State is in the first bracket. Oof. The second bracket is Michigan, UCLA, Maryland, and then Towson or UNC is the play-in. I think UNC is going to upset Towson in the...
I think USC will absolutely take that spot. I mean, they have former Georgia coach Dana Durante, and they've been having a great season.
Yeah,
they won Eagle Championships, I believe.
Right.
Was it them or was it George Washington?
And UNC has a lot to fill right now because UNC in basketball is having a great season, by the way. They are an 8 seed, and I believe they're in the Elite 8 playing St. Peter.
I mean, at this point, I'm not even going to guess who's going to win.
They've met their end. It's over for them. I forgot they're playing St. Peter's today.
Oh, God. They are the bracket ruiners, St. Peter's.
Oh, shoot. But, I didn't know the games were starting so early today.
Yeah. Huh. But I think UNC will take that play-in spot, and then Towson will be out, which Towson has been having a really good season, but I do think UNC has been having a better season. They are out with Wulale Dekanoidze. She is a freshman, and she was huge for them, but she had a season-ending knee injury, unfortunately. So, hopefully she's back in time for next season and all healthy and ready to go because she was huge for them. But I think UNC will take that play-in spot, and then so it would be Michigan, UCLA, you said Maryland, and then the play-in spot?
The play-in spot, yeah, Michigan, UCLA, Maryland, and then the play-in spot's Towson, North Carolina.
Okay, so I think from that one,
North Carolina definitely takes the play-in. We've established that.
Yes, I agree. And then I think it'll be UCLA and Michigan, but if UCLA has a really, really bad day, which is possible, I mean, their first meet was awful. I love UCLA, but
North Carolina might be a shocker in this little bracket.
They could.
I still think Michigan, UCLA, because UCLA is very talented.
They have so many Olympians on their team. Like, they should not be.
I feel like they shouldn't be this low.
No, but they've been struggling with consistency this season, and they've been having their own issues.
I bet you next season
scenes.
they're going to be fine. They've had a lot of issues when it comes to actual individual players and individual talent,
injuries, and
all that stuff. So like, we understand that. So next season, hopefully they get a lot of mental focus back, because when scandals and stupid stuff happens,
all that stuff happens. Yeah,
it messes with the
rough.
Synergy,
and I really hope
a lot of that. So hopefully they fix it.
Yeah,
and
I really hope that they find their
addresses
peace.
it too, because it's been one of those big things that we haven't really addressed as much too. If anybody wants to know, just look up UCLA Gymnastics and you'll find out. But Michigan's just too talented. UCLA is really good when they're hitting, but they could be this low, and they could be a dark horse because of how talented they are. You never know. They could be like, you know what, we're here.
Anything can happen.
Let's focus up.
I mean, that's what we've been saying. Anything can happen as long as they hit. That's the slogan. As long as they hit. From the other one, I'm gonna say LSU.
LSU for sure.
Well, I don't know if I would say for sure, because they have not been having a good time towards the end of the season. I mean,
you're not wrong.
We saw SECs.
You're not wrong.
They counted a bar fault. They could not count Haley Bryant's vault score.
Yep.
Haley
fell on vault.
She didn't even perform the correct vault, actually. I'm assuming, must have had poor foot placement on the board, which happens.
Yeah, she messed up. She had a 9-0 something or something crazy like that.
Yeah, she did not do her front handspring pike half. She did a front handspring and then started a twist. She had the half, but she tucked her knees, so it was a tuck, so it's not a 10-0. But then she also fell.
Yeah,
so
that was crazy.
I mean, it was already, so... it was really bad. I will say, I do think that it'll be LSU, and then I would love to see Missouri make it to the semifinal. But Iowa, I don't know. Iowa could definitely take that spot if one of those teams has an off day.
Once again,
for sure.
Hey, listen, this is one of those times. College sports, Iowa, listen, you have a chance to be better than your basketball counterparts. I put too much faith in Caitlin Clark on the women's side. They lost in the second round to Creighton.
It hurts.
Creighton. Okay. Creighton. Okay. You can do this. If you're gonna upset anyone, please upset Mizzou. I'll be okay with that.
I'll take it. I'll take the Mizzou loss, but I would not be upset if it was Mizzou and Iowa.
Mizzou,
just because that would be fun.
You think upsetting LSU? Ooh.
They could.
Ooh.
I mean, they could. I think if there's an upset to happen, it could definitely happen to Missouri, more likely than LSU.
But it could.
But LSU has shown a lot of inconsistency this season in comparison to like Michigan, Florida, Oklahoma. So, especially postseason. I mean, they didn't even make it to the finals last year. They made it to nationals, but they got locked out by. It ended up being, Florida, Utah, Michigan, and Oklahoma. They got locked out. I mean, they ended up 6th, I believe. So, and then it was Alabama in front of them. So, I mean, anything can happen. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm going to keep saying this and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but literally anything can happen.
It's college sports for you.
That's just how it is.
I'm going to go LSU, Mizzou.
I'm going to say the safe choice.
UCLA. I think those are right.
Yes.
But
I
anything's possible.
But if Missouri or LSU have a bad day, then I think Iowa can stay in there.
Now we're ready, because this is where we get to spicy, not stupid. Ooh. Okay. LSU, Mizzou, Michigan, UCLA. Two go. I say Michigan.
Ooh. Yes, for sure. I agree. Michigan.
And here's the fun take. I'm going
to
UCLA.
be spicy. I was going to say UCLA also. I'm going to be spicy and say UCLA because
I think
if they can get in that mindset.
That's the team. Yes.
I mean, they have the talent to get
I believe in underdogs, and if you have you could get into, like, if you have good leadership and they're like enforcing in the training and in the practices this coming week. And they're like, listen, we're here for a reason still. Things happen, right? We weren't at our best, and we know why we weren't at our best. Let's focus up. We can still get to a national championship. We are still talented enough to get there. Now let's do it.
I would love it. I mean, as you know, St. Peter's has taught us anything can fucking happen.
Anything is possible with anybody.
So
as long as you get to the dance, you can start dancing. That's all that matters.
Yes. So I'm gonna be spicy, and I'm gonna say Michigan and UCLA.
That's I was thinking that for a minute.
But if not, then Michigan and LSU. Yeah. But I'm going with Michigan and UCLA.
Yeah.
Okay, then Seattle. So the Seattle Regional.
This one is light. This feels light.
Yeah, this is definitely light in comparison to Raleigh and Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I mean, there's
still
Utah,
talent.
Alabama, Michigan State, Oregon State, BYU, Washington is the home team.
Mm-hmm.
They're hosting. Illinois, Stanford, and San Jose State. And I believe it's Stanford and San Jose
are your play-in.
For the play-in.
Yes.
And I think Stanford will take that, but...
I also agree.
And that's a big but.
That's a big but.
San Jose State has been having a very, very good record-breaking season. And Stanford isn't always known for their consistency. They have had a rough past few years, but they have also had a really good season this year.
Yeah,
so I do think Stanford will take it.
San Jose is
but
a cool
it could be a close
school every once in a while. When they get to do stuff, they're fun when they're in, because they usually like same with like any other sport when they're actually like they surprise people all the time. I don't know why. It's always San Jose State. I don't know what it is about them, but they always do some crazy stuff. They're the Spartans, right?
Yes, yes, it is Spartans.
Okay, I had to make sure I was talking.
There's
about
actually two teams with Spartans.
Yeah,
there's Michigan State and there's San Jose. But
same
I
region.
will say,
Wow.
yeah, I know. I mean, anything can happen because last year, NC State was the play-in team. Mm-hmm. They made it to the finals.
Wow.
For that regional. So they had to compete 3 days in a row, pretty much.
And they got all the way there. That's hard. That's hard to do.
And they ended fourth. I mean, that's huge for a program like that.
Yeah.
Because they're not a top-name program. They have a lot of talented gymnasts, but they are not up there, obviously, with LSU, Florida, Minnesota, Michigan, like all those teams. Mm-hmm. But there's still a possibility that a team like Stanford or San Jose State can just sneak their way to the final. And that would be phenomenal, especially for San Jose State. I mean, Stanford has made it to nationals before in the past. They used to be like, a huge scoring team. And then they just kind of, fell down in the past few years with coaching changes and all that stuff. But Tabitha Yim has been doing a really good job this year with them, especially.
Right.
So I think they're going to take that play-in spot for sure.
Yeah, I think Stanford's there, but you never know. San Jose State's hanging around for a reason.
Sneak in there.
So in the first matchup, we have Bama, Michigan State, BYU, Washington. Washington's the host.
I think it's going to be pretty out front, Alabama, Michigan State.
Yeah.
BYU has had some big meets this season, but
I've heard
Michigan State has had a bigger season.
Yeah, I've heard BYU mentioned a couple times, but I don't think it's gonna be good enough. Like
I mean, Michigan State has had a record-breaking season this year. I mean, Skylar Schulte, freshman of the year for Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Mike Rowe, coach of the year for Big Ten. They were in the evening session,
right.
Which I don't know the last time that happened for them.
Yeah,
they finished second.
That's huge.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that's huge for them. They have been a program that was one of they didn't have a full season last year because of COVID. They ended season in February because they just kept getting hit with COVID, and they were like, it's not worth it. Like, we'll just try again next year, and it paid off. Clearly, They had more time to rest, and I mean, these freshmen that came in, Gabby Stevens, Skylar Schulte, like huge game changers for the Spartans. Mm-hmm. I mean, massive game changers. So I think it's going to be Alabama and Michigan State for sure. Not much competition between the other two. Washington has had a better season than before because they do have a new coach this year. BYU could sneak in there if Michigan State does have a really bad day, but I do think at the end of the day that it will be those.
Yeah,
other
Bama,
two,
Michigan State just make the most sense.
Yes.
And then between Utah, Oregon State, Illinois, and Stanford playing. Which we say. I'm gonna go Oregon State, Utah. I know those are the obvious choices, but I think Oregon State has a higher ceiling than the other two that are below them.
Yes.
And I think Utah is just obviously talented out the wazoo. So that's.
They're ranked fourth.
Yeah,
they have Miley O'Keefe. They have Grace McCallum. Yeah. They have two Olympians on their team, and they had Kara Aker, who is an Olympic alternate.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's insane. Kara's been out with injury most of the season. She did compete like a handful of times on beam, But if she's back and healthy, she can hit
Yeah.
beam for them and can bring a monster score, which would be great for them because they already have Crystal Issa, they have Adrian Randall, they have Abby Paulson. So, I mean, that can just add, like, fuel to it, you know? Oregon State, Jade Carey, enough said. I mean, her momentum that she has brought to the team has been astronomical, really. I mean, and Tanya Chaplin, their head coach, she is coach of the year for Pac-12. So, I mean, they almost swept the awards this year for the conference because, you know, they had, like I said earlier, Jade Carey, gymnast and freshman of the year for Pac-12, which has never happened. It's unheard of.
Right.
I mean, she's been that dominant.
And that's how good Utah is as a program right now, that they can be that dominant. So
yeah. So both teams. I think it will be Utah and Oregon State for sure.
After that,
I mean, there's just such a drop off between Oregon State and Illinois and Stanford.
Yeah, that's tough because the gap between Oregon State and Illinois, who's the next best team in that little bracket, it's hard.
It's huge.
It's really hard.
It is a very big jump.
Yeah,
So then
that's why we said
the
this one
finals,
wasn't
it would
as
be,
bad. Or it wasn't as
yeah, it's definitely a lot tamer than the
fact that
previous
Iowa,
two, for
Missouri feels like a close gap. UCLA is 14th. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
like,
it's a big gap.
Doable. So
it's there. It's an option. So we went with the top four ranked for the Seattle Regional, which is Utah, Alabama, Michigan State, and Oregon State. So, I mean,
I think Utah
would
goes.
love an upset.
I think Utah goes.
Utah absolutely goes,
Utah's
barring disaster.
Yeah, I think Utah is your number one out of that little section.
Yes, I agree.
This
I
one
agree
feels
100%.
very upset prone. Because
I agree. Because Alabama, anything could happen with them. I mean, especially if Luisa Blanco is still out. She's been training bars, from what I've heard. So that is hopeful for them. But I don't think she'll compete all around, which she does compete a 1.5 on vault, if I'm not mistaken. So that is a 10-0 vault that they will probably lose. And then her floor, she usually brings 9-9 and above. So if she can only do bars, it's still going to be hard for them. But it's a little bit more doable because, you know, they still have Makari Doggett on bars. They still have Lexi Graber on 3. They have Lily Hudson that they can put on 3, possibly 4. So, I mean, it just depends. But I do think that if there is an upset, it could easily go to Michigan State or Oregon State.
Yeah.
I mean, those two programs are pretty comparable right now with the success they've been having.
they're right next to each other in rankings too. So
yeah, I mean, it's insane. So I would love to see Michigan State make it, though. I mean,
oof.
I don't think they've ever made it to nationals, and if they have, it's been a very long time. So, but if not, then Oregon State, because Oregon State has made it recently. Like I said, a few years ago when Florida had the beam meltdown, Oregon State went in with Denver over Florida.
That's crazy.
So,
and Florida
it's
Florida
possible.
was
It's
a 1
definitely
seed
possible.
at the time too, weren't they?
They were up there.
Was this last year?
No, this was
was a couple years.
2019.
Okay.
This was 2019.
This was
Yeah,
before
this
the
was
COVID
pre-COVID. This was pre-COVID, and this was post-UCLA winning a national championship, which, by the way, still the best college meet that has ever existed. But, you know. So, I'm going to say Utah for sure.
Yeah, that's the only one I feel confident in saying right now.
And then I'm going to say Alabama, but
Uh-huh.
if Luisa Blanco is not competing anything, it could still be anybody's game.
Okay, I'm going to go Utah for sure. Oh, man. I'm going to go Oregon State.
Honestly, that was like, my heart wants to see Michigan State there because they have surged this year. I mean,
I'm going to go Oregon State.
But I think that if there was an upset likely, it probably would be Oregon State because Jade Carey's superpower, like her superpower and her star power are enough to push her teammates to get that much better.
Exactly.
And they have Maddie Dagan too.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an all-arounder too. So, and I'm hoping that Caitlin Yanish will be back from injury because she did have a slight ankle injury a few weeks ago and she did not compete at Pac-12s, if I'm not mistaken. So if she's back, then that's another huge vault and floor score for them that they can use.
Right.
So that would be huge for them. But if Alabama does hit everything, then I think it would be Utah, Alabama.
Yeah, that's a tough call.
Sure.
It's a tough call.
It is. It definitely is. It definitely is.
Yeah. So if everything goes according to plan, and we'll be back after regionals to talk about nationals, which is going to be even crazier.
And that's exciting.
We'll see how well of a prediction game we have. So
Watch us be completely wrong, and we just get it completely, utterly wrong with like 1 or 2 correct answers.
I mean, it's really hard. We picked a lot of top seeds, so it's really hard unless like Michigan has a meltdown, Florida has a meltdown, Auburn has meltdowns. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like we even said like Kentucky's a good team. They have a chance. Like we're not going to see like Georgia, Southern Utah. We're not going to. There's no way that happens. Like it doesn't make sense.
And if it does, I will. Yeah, I will be shocked, but I would be very happy for them.
Like good for them. Shout out to them. But like, it seems unlikely. But you never know. It's college.
Anything can happen. College gymnastics, college sports in general.
Anything's possible.
Anything can happen. Clearly.
We've seen this.
Watching basketball.
Yeah, we've seen the season of craziness. Like, I'm watching a 15 seed make the Elite Eight, which is. This is the first time in NCAA history.
That is like insane to think about.
It's the first time it's ever happened, and they're playing an 8 seed who just upset a 1 seed. Like it's like they beat Baylor, who was the defending champions. Like, oh man, North Carolina just.
I'm holding out for Indiana women's basketball. Like
that's the one thing going for you.
That's the one thing I have going for me because clearly Purdue just threw it all away. So. But hey, Indiana basketball, am I right, guys?
Like I'm just excited for the final four because I don't care about the winner of St. Peter's, North Carolina, because I think it'll be cool. The only reason I don't care who wins it. I want North Carolina to win it, and the only reason is because I want the Duke North Carolina rematch. We had it earlier in the season in the ACC tournament, and UNC upset Duke. Duke was the 1 seed. UNC was rolling. So it was really cool. And we were like, oh, Duke's having a meltdown. What's going on? Like, are you okay, Duke? Are you good? What's popping? Are y'all okay? Like, what's going on? And then obviously they're in the Final Four now. So obviously the meltdown was irrelevant. But now they're going to get the rematch. and
that would be actually really exciting to see.
Yeah.
Because if they can prove that wasn't a fluke game, then
North Carolina probably will be your champions. Honestly, they'll probably play. Yeah. They'll play the winner of Villanova, and then whoever wins out of Miami, Kansas, whoever goes out of that one. But like I said, this is my point. Blue schools run the freaking NCAA. The Final Four is consisted of Villanova, who is a blue school, Duke, who is a blue school, St. Peter's and North Carolina are both blue schools, and then Miami's doesn't count. Kansas is there, and Kansas, but 5 of the last 6 teams are blue schools. That's ridiculous. So I hope Kansas wins just to keep the blue school trend going.
That's
and
fair.
It doesn't matter
That's
after
fair.
that. Blue wins another championship. That's all I know. Like I don't remember who won last year. Baylor. Baylor's green. They don't count. That's crazy.
They're the outliers. Also an exception.
They're the outliers. The year before that was Nova, North Carolina. Nova.
A blue team.
I don't know. Actually, I have no clue who won last year because UCLA was. Oh no, that was last year. The year before last. NCAA men's champions. Now I need to know. It's gonna kill me until I figure it out. Cancel due to COVID. Oh, Virginia won. That's right. They're not a blue school. They're an orange school. Well, they have blue in it, but. And it was Villanova, North Carolina, Villanova, Duke, Connecticut, UConn. Those are all blue. Like 5 in a row are blue. Then Louisville. There's your little blue Louisville one. There's your red. Then Kentucky, Connecticut, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Florida, North Carolina, Connecticut. Like it's just ridiculous how many blue schools.
And you know what? If Florida wins this year, then more blue. I'm just saying, like, blue is the way to go.
Yeah, obviously.
So
yeah, I mean, I think we've talked everything we needed to talk about for the time being.
For sure.
We move on. We see the who's hitting the national semifinals, which is really cool. I'm looking at the listing, and they're going to be both national semifinals are on ESPN2, and the actual championship is going to be on ABC, which is really, really good for them.
That's huge. That is huge for college gymnastics and in gymnastics in general.
National TV coverage for their championships, and I really like that.
That's exciting.
That's really, really cool.
I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited for that.
Good for college sports and good for college women's sports in general. And I've talked about this recently a lot and how much we need to bridge the gap between men's and women's sports.
Definitely.
So I'm looking forward to it. Same with WNBA. I was a non-believer and now I'm a believer. So I know when I was wrong. I'm man enough to admit it. So really excited for that, and I'm really excited to see the next things that come out of college. These women participating in the college gymnastics regionals, because
it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be crazy.
I'm gonna say it's been very, not even mildly, wildly entertaining. I have never been more entertained by a sport outside of probably basketball. So just tossing it out there.
We'll see how these regionals turn out. I'm excited.
And Suni I trust. That's about it. That's all I have to say.
Yes.
That's Suni I trust. That's it. Any other closing remarks from my resident gymnastics expert?
Go Gators. That's it.
Dreen just said chomp chomp. That's it. Cut.
Chomp chomp. Let's go.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching or listening over on Spotify. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit the like button or leave a heart. Everything Dreen has will be in the link down below. She has Twitter. She streams on Twitch when she wants to. And she has Instagram, and her TikTok will all be linked down below. You guys check out everything. I have been featured on that TikTok multiple times, and not for good reasons. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, or whatever you enjoy. And don't forget to leave a heart, like, subscribe, everything you have. Follow on Twitter, follow on TikTok, do all the fun stuff. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate all of you guys. And thank you so much for Dreen for being here. Dreen will be back, of course. That's just too much fun to talk about gymnastics. And I didn't think I was going to have as much fun talking about gymnastics for almost 2 hours as I did. So thank you guys for listening. And hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. We'll catch you guys all next time from over us here at the Behind the Plays. I'm your host, Davion. That is Dreen. And we are out.